Well, for anybody, when you're in a position where you, in this day and age, you see the feedback. If you avail yourself to it, you see the feedback so quickly. Um, it's always really cool to see people discovering it, and more than that, even for me, from a lyrical perspective, when it comes to Bleeders, seeing people hypothesize what it's about, or obviously the story behind my friends kind of goes part and parcel with Bleeders, and the interesting thing about it is this EP, as it were, was sort of put together in a very unconventional way, and it's also being sort of released in an unconventional way because of the fact that it was built differently than, say, when we did the Rebels EP 100 years ago, which was meant to be its own separate release in between records, or when we did the Morning EP, which was essentially the parts of Phantom Tomorrow 2 that we had finished that ultimately didn't become the Phantom Tomorrow 2. So there were always like these bodies of work that were built together, and then they're going to be released sort of like a record. In this instance, we were in a position where we were planning and working towards what Bleeders specifically was going to be, prior to signing with Spine Farm. We would, at the very least, we had the concepts and ideas were there. And I knew that what the Sweeney Todd of it all was going to be. So we sort of approached them with, here's this idea. And obviously they were super game for it. But what that meant is we wanted to release something that would go along with the release of this one song, at the very least, because you have a new relationship with the label. You want to be able to put something out there. For us, the fun of a physical product, making vinyl and the art and everything, and getting to work with Jonathan Weiner, who we've worked with for years, doing the artwork. The experience of making something more substantive than just releasing a single to streamers is always appealing. But ultimately, what it is Bleeders, the song, is the release. And the other stuff is, I guess, suppose in some ways it was subsequently seen as bonus material. My Friends was done intentionally to go along with Bleeders, because why not do that? And then Sunday Bloody Sunday was a cover that we had done in the same sessions that we recorded Temple of Love. The long and short of it is to see the reaction being so incredibly positive for something that was done in an unconventional way is both exciting and also really gratifying, because it's nice to know that you can do things in different ways than the traditional methodology. I think what's interesting about it is, you sit down as a songwriter and you intend on sort of building out the world that you see in your mind, and then the way that it's interpreted ultimately changes with the listener. And I've seen, in some cases, seen it almost as a criticism where people just didn't seem to get it. I've seen it said, "Oh, it's a song about Sweeney Todd," and it's a song influenced by Sweeney Todd, but ostensibly, I'm not sitting down to write a song about the character Sweeney Todd. The idea is, as with all of these sort of comic book or larger than life concepts that we've dealt with, how do I funnel something that has influenced me through the prism of my lived experience and write a song about what it is to exist in this world, and to sort of find ways that I can bring in the influence and bring in terminology. And that was also fun because working with Eric, Eric was not hyper familiar with the show outside of the movie or whatever. And, the way that I write lyrics, I'm a very solitary writer. I don't collaborate really at all. And probably to my detriment, I'm not a good collaborator. I go off and write my lyrics, and then I come back and here's what it is. And with this one, I really, once I had gotten the song to a place where I felt lyrically like I was saying what I wanted to say, there was some parts where I had ideas of how we could bring in references to the show, and sat with Eric and collaborated in that way of, here's some stuff. What do you think about finding a way to bring this in? Or, the to seek revenge may lead to hell. Like, how do we find that in there? You know what I mean? So, and find it in a way that feels earned in the song. And like lyrically, it's not just coming out of left field. So I would say the biggest, it's not necessarily a challenge, but the most fun thing about it is to, just like doing Phantom Tomorrow or anything else, find ways to bring the characters and the story into something that you're writing ostensibly about your life. I couldn't believe it because Alex Mungle, who did the lighting and the video work on the Trinity of Terror in the U.S., he had said to me, he has a Phantom of the Opera tattoo, and so do I, and that's a huge thing for me. And so I said something to him early in the tour of like, I just seeing somebody else in this world that also loves musicals is not that common. So he and I struck up a conversation. And at some point, I guess he had referenced to me, that he loves Sweeney Todd. And, what for me, if you're talking to somebody about something, maybe in passing, you don't remember everything about it. But I remember right when we put out the ad mat for the tour, he hit us up immediately and was like, "Oh my God, this is, I would love to do a Sweeney Todd themed show." So we started work right away with Alex on how do we build out what felt like almost like a local theater production of Sweeney Todd. We wanted it to feel like set carts in the way that the original production was, these sort of things that would roll in and out. And it wasn't, the staging was very minimal in the original production on Broadway. So we wanted to try to do something similar where it looks like these sort of rolling set carts that come in and out. And he did a brilliant job at building those out in the brick wall. And then, we had the barrels on stage, and our entry point to the stage was a door on the side that was backlit. So it looked very Sweeney in terms of that aesthetic. And yeah, I mean, we got really lucky in that sense that we were able to work with somebody who also had a deep love and appreciation for the show. I'm trying to think of where I remember. So you might remember this. I don't remember if it was your publication or another one, but there was a terminology that was being thrown around in like 2015 for gothy bands, typically like gothy screamo bands, called New Grave. And this is nothing against the New Grave bands, but stylistically, my interests tend to be more towards theatrical punk rock, which is not really what the New Grave sound was. But I remember Creeper was put into that category. And at some point I was given, it was maybe for a tour or something, hey, listen to these bands. And it was like a New Grave compilation or something. And I remember listening to it. And again, nothing against the other bands, but for me personally, I had not heard a band in so long that was almost like tailor made for me. And the song VCR was on that compilation, and I heard it, and it felt like when I heard, we've talked about before, like hearing Good Morning for the first time, and where you go like, oh, this is for me. It was so crazy for me at that point in my career to hear a band that were just getting started, that musically were so akin to the things I loved. And then every subsequent release, I joked with Will at the start of the last tour, I sometimes feel like when I'm listening to their new releases that it's like a Truman Show scenario where this must just be made for me, like, because it's so hyper specific, to combine, oh, this song is a Meatloaf, The Damned, and Alkaline Trio, like, you know what I mean? Like it's so specific to things that I love, that it blows me away. And Will said something on the last tour that is probably true. He was, because we would sit and just, I mean, it got to the point where we were just texting band names with a question mark back and forth. You know what I mean? Like just to confirm that we both loved the same things. But he was like, he said something along the lines of, if we had grown up together, we would have been like inseparable, because we share the most hyper specific interests. I've never known another person, everything, every single dumb comedy show or musical or horror movie or band, it's like a mirror image in terms of the things we love. And obviously we make very different music, but it's such a cool treat of an experience to get to know somebody who grew up so far away that essentially shares all the same love of pop culture and music, and to get to create something together in this way for Wembley and do this big show together. And it's been unbelievable. So we've been texting back and forth all day, every day. We've had multiple calls with the management and the labels, and we have really big ideas. And I've said before, by the time October 30th comes, when you were at that show, just know that we are putting forth the best possible thing we could, because we are short of turning the totality of Wembley into like a anthropomorphic bat and flying into the sky. I don't know what we're going to do. Yeah, I mean, not to sound insensitive, but those sort of like videos where you see the kid on the team that never gets to play, and then it's the end of the season and they let the kid in, and they, the other team, everyone agrees on the field that they're going to let this kid score. It felt a little bit like that, where everyone had had agreed to let Andy be Sweeney Todd. Like it was a lifelong dream where, and I sort of felt like everyone's just is letting me do. Now, of course, there's a financial part of that I was responsible for, but at the very least, it was a dream. I've said to you, I think I saw recently somebody unearthed an interview from a couple years ago where I was saying to you that I would literally fly anywhere to be part of even like a local theater production of Sweeney Todd. So it was, it was grueling hours. There's a lot of stuff that we shot that just couldn't fit in the video because it's a 4-minute song and there's only so much you can do. But I was there every day. It was multiple day shoot. We would wrap at 3 in the morning and start work again at 10 in the morning. Which, I suppose looking exhausted benefits the aesthetic of Sweeney Todd. We didn't have to do much with my dark under eye bags. We could just sort of leave them as is in natural makeup in that way. Not to say that Nikki Hernandez, our incredible makeup artist, didn't do an amazing job, but yeah, I was exhausted and yet so incredibly excited every day. It was a dream, and the Jensen Owen and his team and the set design and there's obviously some CGI effects that are done in post, particularly in the music box area. But that set, the barbershop set, is a real practical set that we shot in for days. That you could point a camera at any angle, and it was this full room with a functioning chair that had the drop, and you could go down the floor, and the whole thing was unbelievable. And that's another thing, for me, for so many years, I was directing our videos and making the costumes, and to be able to walk into a situation where creatively the germ of the idea came from me, but it wasn't me having to build everything and make everything, and people who were significantly more talented than me were in charge and making it better than I ever could. It was just such an honor and a treat to be a part of that. Well, we started about a year ago. We started work on a concept that I had for an album, and it may very well be used at some point, but we have sort of switched the methodology and the total concept, and I'm really excited about where it's going right now. So I would say that we have very few things that are listenable, completed demos, but a lot of bits of ideas, and are continuing to work. So I don't think I would be speaking out of school to say that there will be something, some new original material by the start of next year, at the very least a single or something, because we've been working a lot and the ideas are there and it's very exciting. And again, that it's sort of useless to say because it's not going to see the light of day, at least not for a while. But we had started work on what I was thinking was sort of the next big concept record, big multiple acts in the whole thing. And while that's really exciting and something that we enjoy doing, we've sort of zeroed in, and I've sort of shifted my interest creatively to stuff that's a little bit more specific and still very theatrical and over the top in the way that Bleeders was, but maybe a little bit less overarching in terms of the totality of the concept.